Coming up on the show, one Metro Atlanta community has thrown open the doors to its new City Hall and Government Center. We're going to examine what's behind the multi-million-dollar price tag. Also, a Georgia man's future hangs in the balance while he sits in ICE custody. We're going to break down the case, which is raising big questions about justice, love, and the law. And today honors seniors across the nation. We'll hear how one local woman is proving that giving back doesn't stop with retirement. This is The Take. Let's get it. I'm Jesse McNeil, and this is The Take, where we go above and beyond the headlines and we look at the why and how stories are impacting you and your community. We invite the experts in to share their take as well on today's top stories, and we try to have just a little bit of fun as well. We're going to kick it off today with the Vice President. Vice President J.D. Vance is making a stop in Metro Atlanta today to promote President Trump's planned tax cut contained in the passed One Big Beautiful Bill. The White House says this is happening later today in Peachtree City. Now, the moves in the president's bill include permanently continuing cuts originally enacted in 2017 during Mr. Trump's first term in office. It also includes above-the-line deductions for both tips and overtime pay, effectively exempting them from federal income tax. And it contains a higher child tax credit and senior deductions. Here now to talk more about the tax cuts and what we can expect from the Vice President's visit is Alex Zong. He is the Associate Professor of Law at Emory and an expert on tax law and policy. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Chesley. I'm happy to be here.
All right. Alex, Vice President Vance is coming to town. Obviously, his office is saying that they're talking about this bill, right? A win for working families. But when you strip it away, all the rhetoric, does the math really start mathing here?
Yeah, absolutely. So, the 2025 tax bill basically gives almost everyone a little bit of a tax cut. One thing to note that this is not really an overhaul of the tax system like what we saw in President Trump's first term in 2017. Most of the tax cuts actually came from just making permanent the 2017 tax cuts enacted during his first term. I think the important provisions in the bill are, extension of the lower tax rates, a larger standard deduction, some of the child tax credit stuff, as well as state and local tax deduction. As you mentioned, there was a number of miscellaneous provisions, primarily campaign promises like no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. I think experts have taken a look at this bill. If you make, let's say, $50,000 to $75,000, you're looking at about $1,000 of tax savings. So that can be quite substantial for some of these working families, for sure.
Talk to me about a family living in Atlanta that's working paycheck to paycheck. What does these tax actually mean for them? And are they going to feel some of the relief from that, or is this kind of a smoke and mirrors kind of thing?
Yeah, I think for a lot of these tax cuts, you have to get the broader picture. So, if you're like a family working paycheck to paycheck, you'll definitely see some tax relief, right? I think you might see a couple $100s of cuts, when you file your taxes. You might see upwards to like $1,000, a couple thousand if you make a little bit more. Of course, the extension of the lower tax rates from 2017 also mean that if you're really wealthy, you can save a lot of money. I think if you make more than $1 million, you're looking at tax savings more like $70,000, right? I also think that it depends on what kind of profession you work in. If you work in a tipped profession, obviously there's good news for you. There's a deduction up to $25,000 per year. If you make up to about $150,000 after that, it starts to phase out a bit. Of course, the limitation is that you have to work in a profession that customarily and regularly receive tips. So, for example, a restaurant or housekeeper in a hotel, that kind of thing. And of course, if you work overtime in like a hourly paid, non-professional kind of job, then you'll also get a deduction on overtime pay up to $12,500. So if you fall under any of these categories, you're going to see a little bit more in tax savings than other people.
So we talk about the tax breaks, but we also see cuts in Medicaid and SNAP benefits. Is it essentially taking from one spot and giving it to another?
Yeah, I think, the federal bill is going to cut Medicaid spending by quite a bit. So yeah, I mean, if you rely on Medicaid, then yes, you will be seeing some of that benefits cut at some point in the future. Um, so you're right. I mean, you are taking some money, right? You're taking some money from the spending the social welfare programs to a couple of places, right? You're funding the no tax on tips, no tax on overtime. More importantly, you're also funding a very large tax cut to people who are making to people in the highest marginal tax rate bucket who make more than like $700,000. And of course, one thing about all of these deductions, I always tell my students in class, is that they're upside down subsidies, right? So what I mean by that is that, if your family, let's say, you make $30,000, you have $3,000 worth of tipped income, the no tax on tip is actually not worth anything to you because in the federal government, for the federal government, you pay a marginal tax rate of like 0%. You don't care about the deduction. On the other hand, if you're a household making more like $300,000 and you make $10,000 worth of tipped income, you're actually getting maybe a few thousand back from the federal government. So when you structure anything like a deduction, like these no tax on tips kind of provisions, you are giving more of a benefit to people who make more, just because they're subject to a higher tax rate.
Yeah. At the end of the day, Alex, would you say that this bill is more of a bill tax policy, or is it a campaign strategy to dress up tax relief?
I think this is really a campaign strategy, and tax so much is about politics. And the president had made so many campaign promises, no tax on tips, the overtime, Social Security, and so on and so forth. I think this is just part of fulfilling his campaign promise. Obviously, this is an extremely expensive part of legislation. It's going to cost Congress upwards of $4 trillion over the next few years. So in a way, right, I mean, like we have so much federal debt, we're going to have to raise taxes to pay for all of it anyway.
Wow.
So, if there's any losers, right, I mean, almost everyone's getting a tax savings. If there's any loser from this bill, it's really people in the future, right? People who have higher earning potential in the future versus now. The tax cuts don't mean all that much to them now, but we're going to have to raise taxes on them in the future to pay for everything.
Alex Zong, thanks so much for joining us, man, and all your insight. Really appreciate it.
Of course. Thank you so much.
Have a great day. All right, you're watching The Take, folks. We're back right after this. Well, despite President Trump's insisting that the leaders of Ukraine and Russia sit down to put an end to that war, officials in Russia are now throwing cold water on that idea. Joining us now is NBC Washington correspondent Alice Barr. Hello, Alice. Talk to us about why Russia's foreign minister is now talking about a road to nowhere.
Good morning. Yeah, with some new comments from Sergei Lavrov. He is the top diplomat in Russia. He said that having discussions among Western leaders, like we saw just yesterday, NATO military leaders, leaders from the U.S., talking about security guarantees for Ukraine's future without having Russia at the table, that's what he called a road to nowhere. He also said that it's necessary to have some lower level negotiations before we can have this much anticipated meeting between Russian President Putin and Ukrainian President Zelensky. So that's kind of the cold water being thrown on the idea that President Trump has said he wants to see this kind of a summit happen very shortly, and then he wants to have a separate meeting to follow that would include himself, so Putin, Zelensky, and Trump. But to hear it from Russia, they don't seem to be in any rush to get to that kind of a leaders summit. They want these lower level talks first, and they're saying, it's sort of nice that you're having all these discussions. We've seen all these heads of state from various European leaders talking, but Russia's saying if we're not sitting there, then you might as well be yelling into the wind.
Seems like the president from Ukraine has been getting a little bit more support to support his cause. Now he had some new comments from overnight. What did he have to say?
Yeah, he was speaking about exactly this, security guarantees for Ukraine. And when we talk about this, he's talking about wanting to know exactly what and how far his allies in Europe and in the U.S. are willing to go to offer protections for Ukraine when and if this war finally ends. It's not just about the war ending, it's about the day after and ensuring that Russia does not just launch new attacks potentially from new territory if Ukraine winds up having to cede some of this territory they've been battling for in the east. Then the concern has been that just gives Russia even more of a launching pad to get closer to, say, Kyiv in what would then be Russian territory. So they want very specific, we heard this from one of Zelensky's top aides, they want very concrete, specific, effective agreements, because they have had past times when there have been sort of broad agreements made between Ukraine and some European leaders, for instance, giving up nuclear weapons in Ukraine because powers in the West said, we'll protect you from future attacks. And then future attacks came anyway. And they're saying we can't have that kind of a mistake this time. So before, also, there's going to be a meeting, this leaders summit. Ukraine has some of its own conditions that they want a better understanding about these security guarantees. And that's really what we're hearing from Zelensky now.
Yeah. Alice, on a separate front, there seems to be some major developments out of the war in Gaza. Catch us up on the latest there.
Yeah, Israel launched strikes on Gaza City overnight, part of a new offensive that's just beginning and is coming despite international condemnation and growing protests at home in Israel as well. Israel is calling this the first stages of a planned assault that includes up to 60,000 troops, sending civilians fleeing once again and only adding to fears about the starvation crisis. Israeli forces also struck cities in the south and center of the Strip overnight, and all of this is throwing ceasefire talks into question. There had been some hopes raised as Hamas said it was accepting a new proposal put forward by Arab leaders, but that proposal does not seem to be palatable to Israel. Israel's prime minister is again defending his approach that he says this new offensive is going to target remaining Hamas strongholds, and he's holding to his belief that Hamas must be entirely eliminated in order to end the war and to bring home the remaining hostages.
All right,
Chesley.
Alice Barr, thanks so much for joining us. Really appreciate you. All right, new discoveries in outer space. We're going to learn more about those when we come back. Stay right there. Welcome back to the show. The planet Uranus is about 1.5 billion miles from the Earth, but it has marveled astronomers since its discovery in 1781 by English astronomer William Herschel. Now it's once again generating some cosmic buzz as astronomers are using NASA's James Webb Space Telescope, and has detected a tiny new moon orbiting around that planet. Let's bring in friend of the show, Judd Reedy, who is at Georgia Tech's School of Materials Science and Engineering. Welcome back to the show, Judd.
Thank you, Chelsea.
All right.
You having me back again.
I mean, so how big of a leap is this discovery in terms of what we can now see and study in our own solar system?
Well, it's the 29th moon of Uranus. It's very tiny. That's why we haven't discovered it yet. It's about 6 miles across, which would fit really comfortably between my office here on Georgia Tech campus and Lenox Mall, for instance. So very difficult to see. Even when Voyager 2 passed through the Uranus system, when I was a child, it didn't see this. It was below the detection limit. But the James Webb Space Telescope that we launched and commissioned a couple of years ago is able to see it because it's viewing in the infrared, which is a different wavelength than our eyeballs see.
Now explain, you said that we haven't discovered it yet. We can see it, but we haven't discovered it. Explain the difference there.
Well, we hadn't discovered it. I mean, it's been there for many millions, billions of years. But we've only had the detector limits on the telescope to be able to see it, and soon we'll be able to assess its composition. Right now, it's dimmer than the other ones as well. So that's curious as to why it is so dim. Other than the fact that it's smaller, it's dimmer than it should be for that size.
Mm-hmm. Why did it take until 2025 now for us to see it on the telescope?
Because the James Webb Telescope, it was too small for Hubble's Space Telescope to see. We had to wait for the James Webb Telescope to see it. Even sending the Voyager probe right there to that neighborhood was not able to see it.
Wow.
So Uranus is a very interesting system overall. Just the planet itself is cockeyed 90 degrees, so it's revolves around the Earth as if it's a rolling ball. So the pole points towards the sun as opposed to ours, which are more up and down.
Yeah.
Think of it that way.
What does that tell us about this telescope that can see things that even the Voyager and Hubble have missed? I mean, this is powerful, right?
Yeah, James Webb is the most powerful telescope ever. As I mentioned before, it's very good for observing in the infrared as opposed to the visible wavelengths that our eyeballs see with traditional telescopes. Other telescopes also look at other wavelengths, for instance, X-ray wavelengths, but the Webb telescope is in orbit. It's got a really complex segmented mirror that took a lot of engineers a lot of time to perfect that, and it's working and returning incredible scientific discoveries of outer space.
So this moon, I understand, is only about 6 miles wide, as you mentioned. I think you could practically jog around the planet in a day, right? Or at least that telescope, I mean, that satellite in a day. Does the size make it significantly or scientifically less important?
No, anything worth studying, from the smallest bacteria to the largest of black holes. Size does not matter in science, we should say.
Wow. What would you say that people wonder why we care so much about this little piece of rock? What would you say about if people say, well, why do we care about it?
Indeed. So there's things that are known and things that are unknown, and in between is the discovery aspect. Many years ago, we didn't know much about Earth's moon. Mm-hmm. Was there water on there? Were they used to think the black areas were oceans. They called them seas, Maria. No, it's not water, it's lava. Solidified lava.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Do you think with this discovery, it'll let us know that does it really let us know we have much more to discover out there? I mean, and maybe even life?
Space is infinite, literally an infinite amount of things to study and to try to understand, and we understand so little of it. Thankfully, we're getting better over time, getting capabilities like the Webb Space Telescope, for instance, to allow us to explore these things. And to touch on your point before, some people complain about spending money on space. Mm-hmm. Money's not spent on space. It's spent here on Earth studying space, to build these instruments, to pay the scientists to operate them, to pay the technicians to fabricate it in the first place.
Yeah,
So,
well, I appreciate the new discoveries, especially in outer space. I'm very curious, and I'm sure there's more like me as well. Doc, really appreciate you being on with us today.
look forward to the next time, Chelsea.
You got it. All right. Plenty more stories for you coming up, folks. This is The Take. We're back right after this. Welcome back to the show. Powder Springs just opened its brand new $13 million City Hall, bringing most of the government services under one roof for the first time. It's not just an office building, but a centerpiece for the city's push to revitalize downtown and connect with the community. Let's learn more about this big home base from Powder Springs Mayor Al Thurman. Welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, Mayor, what was most likely for you personally standing there opening up the doors for this building for the first time?
I tell you, it's been a great excitement. I mean, you know, it's almost 3 years waiting for this opportunity, so it's been very exciting. It's a 5-star building. Everybody that comes into it can feel the excitement of this new building, and just having everyone under the same roof where different departments can collaborate. It's just exciting.
Yeah, we were looking at some pictures of that right now. What kind of feedback have you gotten so far from some of the residents?
Oh man, they love this building. You know, you have to think, we were all in different buildings. The City Hall was one place, community development was another, the courts was in another one. To have everybody under one roof is really what the ultimate goal was.
Yeah. How does the new building reflect the pride and identity of Powder Springs?
It's just explosive. It really is. It's explosive.
Yeah. Talk about all the services now that are located under one building, and why was it important to bring them all under one roof?
Well, one thing, you know, the whole idea of building a new city hall, we were running out of space. Certainly, the city is growing. I don't know if you know, Powder Springs is the fastest growing city in Cobb. Mm-hmm. And by the time we get with all of the development that we have in the pipeline, we could go from 20 to 25,000 people. Wow. So obviously we knew even back 3 years ago that obviously we needed to plan for more space and bringing everybody under one roof. And that was the goal. And obviously to see all of this come to fruition is just really exciting.
Yeah. $13 million project. Some would say, is it worth the price tag? What do you say to them?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm. How do you see this City Hall being part of people's everyday lives, not just people coming and paying bills, but how is it a part of their everyday lives?
Well, obviously, you know, part of this new City Hall, I don't know if you saw one of the things, we have a community room where people can come, activities can be held here. So we want community engagement. We have an art gallery here in the City Hall. We want people to come in this particular city hall overlooks the park. It's inviting. People can come in, walk through. It's just a beautiful building and a lot to behold.
Well, how much of this replaces the old city hall?
Say again?
How much of this replaces the old city hall?
I think in regards to the old city hall, we had very limited space. As I stated earlier, all of our department of community development was in a different building. Our court system was a different building. So it encapsulates everything that we needed under one roof. And it certainly makes collaboration a whole lot easier.
All right. What's next for Powder? I'm sorry. Go ahead. Continue.
It keeps the public from having to go from one building to the next to get services done.
Mm-hmm. What's next for Powder Springs now? Are there other projects on the horizon?
Well, obviously, we're on a moratorium. We've had so much development. People wanting to come to Powder Springs. Powder Springs seems to be the place to be now. And so we're looking at what the impact is of our growth, and because we've been growing so fast. So obviously, we're trying to slow things down a little bit to make sure we can evaluate the impact of the growth. All
right, sounds good. Mayor Al, thanks for joining us this morning, man, taking a little time out to talk with us today.
Well, thank you. Thank you for having me.
All right, take care now. All right, Hurricane Aaron is pulling away from the Georgia coast. Could there be more coming? We'll talk about that coming up. And immediately after the break, we're going to talk about a local man's fight to remain in the country. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. A Loganville barber who lived in the United States for nearly 50 years is still waiting to learn if he'll be deported to Liberia, a country he hasn't seen since he was 2 years old. Rodney Taylor, a W amputee, had an immigration hearing last week, but the judge delayed the decision. Now he remains in a Georgia detention center, and his family fears that what deportation would mean for his health and his safety. 11Alive's Caitlin Ross has been on this story from the start. Hello, Caitlin.
Good morning, Chesley.
This is such a personal and complicated story. Let's start with the basics. Who is Rodney Taylor?
Well, Chesley, we met him months ago. We were actually doing a human interest story on his efforts to help people get medical care in the community. We met him behind the barber chair and didn't even know about his immigration status. It was just a day before that story was supposed to air that we heard from his fiance that he had been detained by ICE and was in detention because of his immigration status.
Why is ICE trying to deport him after all these years?
So this is a super complicated story. Back when he was 16, he was arrested for breaking and entering. It was a juvenile conviction, and he received a full pardon from the state for that conviction. But when it comes to federal immigration law, that doesn't always line up with state law. And so the immigration law at this point supersedes that pardon, and they're told it doesn't meet the standard for him to stay in this country. So the federal government took him to court, and he had that immigration hearing determining whether or not he needs to go back to Liberia or can stay here in the U.S.
Has he ever tried to fix his immigration status?
Yes, 3 times he actually applied for legal immigration. He also tried to apply under DACA, but because of that juvenile conviction, even though it was pardoned, those applications were denied. His family says he never tried to hide his status, though, and was not hiding from any authorities as he repeatedly applied to become a citizen.
Wow. Does he still have family there? I mean, what would it mean for him to be deported back to Liberia?
So he doesn't have any family here. His entire family moved to the United States, and all of them are citizens. So it's been difficult to try and untangle why Rodney's citizenship was not approved, because he was brought here when he was 2. And his mom, his dad, his brothers, they all got their citizenship, but something happened with Rodney and he never became a legal citizen. So he doesn't have any family in Liberia, and he hasn't been there since he was 2 years old.
Wow. What's happening with his case right now?
So we've been following this case since he was in detention, and he's had a number of hearings. The last hearing was just last week, and the judge had said ahead of the hearing that he was going to rule that day. He was going to hear all of the evidence. Rodney's mom was going to testify, his fiance was going to testify, and then he was going to make a decision. But as soon as the judge kind of heard the full history of the case, he said, wow, this is really complicated. And he decided he needed 30 days to review the case thoroughly, and then he's going to issue a written decision. So right now his entire family is on standby, just waiting to see what's going to happen.
Yeah, these stories seem to be coming up more and more and more. They seem to touch more on debate about immigration policy.
That is really igniting a fire with a lot of people here in Georgia. When we had first aired his story, no one was really aware of what was happening. And then as we continued to cover it, this story started getting statewide and then national attention. There have been a number of protests, both both outside the ICE immigration facility here in Atlanta, and then when we went to his hearing in Stewart Detention Facility, which is all the way out in Lumpkin, Georgia, it's about a 2-hour drive, there was a huge protest there. So a lot of people are picking up on his story and asking the judge for leniency. We were not allowed inside the courtroom. It's a federal court hearing and it's in a detention facility, so it's completely closed. No cameras, no reporters, nothing. But his family reported to us that the judge says he's taking these concerns seriously. He's going to review all of this and he's going to issue that written decision within 30 days.
So 30 days. How much time does he have left? Do we know?
So we don't know yet.
Okay.
We've been checking in with his fiance every other day. The hearing was last week, so it will be by probably the beginning of September, mid-September, when he's going to get that ruling. His fiance had felt really strongly like the judge was going to rule in his favor. She said she didn't want him to get to 7 months in detention, and she was hoping that the judge would make that decision and he would be out. But now he's past that 7 months in detention, and what she's really worried about is the fact that he is a double amputee, and she says he has not had access to his prosthetics. So he hasn't been able to go to the cafeteria to get food. He's having a really hard time bathing himself. She says it's inhumane and she wants him released so he can be properly cared for.
Have you had a chance to talk to him to see how he feels about all this?
Yes, actually, we're able to interview him when he's in detention. They have a video call feature where if you put money on the account, you can have an interview with him. And he said he's just feeling pretty dejected right now. He says he's trying to keep the hope and keep the faith. His family is very religious and they say they're trusting in God and hoping that the right outcome for them ends up happening. But as of now, we have no ruling for the decision.
Wow, here since 2. All right, Caitlin, thanks so much for this story. Really appreciate it. We'll be checking it out. You can check out Caitlin's full report tonight on 11 Live News at 11 and right here on 11 Live Plus. All right now let's take a look at Wrightsville Beach. This is in North Carolina, just outside of Wilmington, North Carolina, along the Atlantic shores, and you can see how things are a little bit rough, a little bit choppy, thanks to a hurricane that's out there, right? Not making a direct landfall over North Carolina, but close enough that it is, disrupting the waters there, if you will. And so we'll continue to watch that as it continues to pull away from the coast. That's the good news right there. We're talking about Hurricane Erin here. It stays offshore. We'll continue to push further away, but right now just battering, if you will, the East Coast. Even our coastline experiencing some high surf. We had some high surf advisories around here. Time now to bring in Ty Vaughn. Welcome to the show, my friend. How you doing?
Good. How about yourself?
All right, doing good, man. We're talking about this storm that's out there. We kind of dodged the bullet here with this. You was a major hurricane that moved up the eastern seaboard.
We definitely did. Hurricane Erin is no longer a major hurricane, but it's definitely a massive hurricane. Wind field stretches all the way from Bermuda to the Outer Banks of North Carolina, so a very impressive storm still.
Is the fact that it hasn't made a landfall, or at least the strongest part of the storm, the strongest part of the winds of the storm haven't reached the Outer Banks, can it still do significant damage even with those outer bands over toward North Carolina?
Absolutely. And a lot of those Outer Banks areas of North Carolina have some kind of beach hazard out, be it rip currents or storm surge flooding. And then a few areas are under a tropical storm warning. So definitely still a concern for those beachgoers in North Carolina.
You said this is no longer a major hurricane. How far out, or at least up to the north now, will they feel the winds from the storm, or feel the impacts from the storm?
So this morning, wind impacts are being felt all the way up into like the mid-Atlantic DC area, all the way out to Bermuda. And that track is expected to continue to shift off to the northeast as it races up toward the North Atlantic.
Now that it's just to the north of us, is our shore okay here in Georgia?
Yep, not expecting any impacts for the Savannah area down across the Georgia shore. So, other than the rip current concerns that are still out there, most of that threat has moved off to the northeast.
So we haven't had any flooding along our shores, right?
Not that I know of.
Okay, all right. Speaking of flooding, last night we had some from some isolated thunderstorms, drop some brief heavy rain, right? I mean, will we see more of that?
We did, yeah. Unfortunately, we had a storm set up just over the metro area last night that brought about 2.5 inches of rain, some localized urban flooding that caused some issues in the downtown area. Today, we could see some more scattered thunderstorms that could cause the same issues, as we do have that tropical air mass in place. And then tomorrow is also going to be a big concern. We get a stationary front that stalls along and south of I-20 that could bring anywhere from 1 to 3 inches of rain, with a possibility of some 5 inches in isolated areas, and that's going to bring more flash flooding concerns as well.
Do you know where we are as far as rainfall? Do we need it, or is this something that's just adding insult to injury?
Well, I'll let the hydrologist speak on that, but we've definitely had quite a bit of rainfall over the past couple of weeks. So I think we're out of any kind of drought information or drought concerns for pretty much the entire part of the state.
Gotcha. Now we got some good things coming down the pike, right?
We do, yeah. Some false fall is in our forecast for the next week. Looks like temperatures are going to fall into the low 80s beginning on Sunday and going into Monday, and the overnight lows in the 60s. So it's going to feel more like September and October than it will August.
You know, we always get the question every time these little fake seasons come our way. Oh, is it going to last? Is it going to stick around? Is summer over for us? We always get those questions. I'm going to put it on you, Ty. Is it over for us, or could we get more heat?
It's Georgia in the south, so I don't expect summer to permanently go away until well into November at some point.
Well into November, folks. You heard him. You heard him. All right.
Don't quote me.
Oh, man, really appreciate all your insight, man, on what's coming our way. It will feel good around here to get some lower humidity, some sunshine. It'll be nice. So that'll be a nice break for us.
It definitely will. I'm looking forward to being outside.
Absolutely, my friend. Thanks so much for joining us.
Not a problem.
All right, folks, don't go anywhere. We'll be back right after this. Welcome back to the show. The Fed is sounding the alarm about inflation again. CNN's Maribel Aber joins us now from the NASDAQ market site in New York. Hello, Maribel.
Hello, Chesley.
All right, this time the trade tariffs are front and center on the minds of the Fed chair.
They are. The impact of tariffs is one of the big issues for the Fed, and the Fed was also concerned with the job market and inflation when it met last month. That's according to the minutes of the Fed's meeting, which were released yesterday. Now, the majority of Fed officials at the time were in favor of not cutting interest rates just yet. The Fed is still trying to gauge how much tariffs could drive up costs for consumers and send inflation higher. But despite all that, many now believe the Fed will cut its key interest rate when it meets in September, and we'll have even more insight tomorrow when Fed Chair Jerome Powell gives a policy speech. Powell and the rest of the Fed are gathered at their annual conference in Jackson Hole, Wyoming. Chesley.
We'll be looking forward to that tomorrow. All right. Google quietly armed its new Pixel 10 lineup with an AI that thinks and acts before we do.
Okay, another sign of just how integrated AI is becoming in our devices. Google has launched its new Pixel 10 smartphone line. It's powered by artificial intelligence. The company says the devices can use its AI to do smart tasks. One example, AI quickly getting the address of an Airbnb when someone sends a text asking for it. The line includes the Pixel 10, which starts at $799. There's also a $999 model, as well as a Pixel 10 Pro XL with a larger screen that starts at $1,199. Chesley, we've got flip phones, we've got AI integration. It'll be interesting to see what Apple comes up with in just a few weeks.
Oh, yeah, you know, it's going to be something bigger and better. You know, they just keep this fight going. And I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Our Amazon carts are about to get bumpers and not barrels, and Hertz is selling cars online.
Yeah, Hertz has started selling its used rental cars on Amazon right now. The vehicles are available through Amazon Autos in 4 locations, so Dallas, Houston, Los Angeles, and Seattle. Buyers can browse cars and complete their purchase right on the website and then pick up the vehicle. Plans call for an additional 45 locations around the U.S. to be added. Now, for Hertz, it's another way to sell its rentals directly to consumers. The company already offers them through its website along with Carvana and Autotrader.com, and Hertz sells about a third of its former rental cars directly to consumers through its auto lots and website. But most of the vehicle sales still go through auto auctions or through dealers. We started with books, Chesley, now it's cars.
Can you believe it? It just keeps growing, right? Atlanta-based Delta Airlines is now in a part of a lawsuit, a class action lawsuit over windows seats not having windows. I've experienced this myself.
Oh, I want to hear about it. So both Delta and United Airlines are being sued by passengers who claim they paid for window seats only to find themselves seated next to a blank wall of the plane. The lawsuits say planes used by the 2 airlines have seats that normally would offer windows, but due to the placement of air conditioning ducts, electrical conduits, or other components, those seats end up being windowless on some planes. Both lawsuits are proposed class actions and are seeking millions of dollars of damages for more than 1 million passengers at each carrier. A woman in the lawsuit filed against United said the airline refunded her the fees for windowless seats on 2 flights, but not on a 3rd one where there was also no window. Some airlines do flag these types of seats during the booking process. When I used to travel a lot for business, Chesley, I always used seatguru.com to check out the airplane configuration just because of this reason. By the way, I'm an aisle person.
You're smart. You're smart. I did the same thing. Got on the plane and it was just that wall there, and I'm thinking, I paid for a window. You know, and so I wanted to
That's
back
right.
my seat up and share the window of my neighbor behind me there. But yeah. So you got to know.
Hi.
It pays to know. Right. It pays to know. Maribel, thanks so
It
much
does.
for joining us. Thanks so much
You
for
got
the
it.
insight today. All right, folks. How good are we at honoring the seniors in our society? We're going to discuss that when we return. Well, folks, if you didn't know, today is National Senior Citizens Day, a chance to honor the dignity, contributions, and the ongoing value of the elder generation. And one woman is truly bringing that spirit to life. With us now is Frances Ruffin. She's a retired nurse who's now active with a group called Seniors Helping Seniors out of Lilburn. Frances, welcome to the show.
Well, oh, good. Thank you for letting me be here.
Oh,
I'm
absolutely.
honored.
Absolutely. How are we doing as a society when it comes to valuing the role of our older adults?
I think there could be some improvement. Sometimes seniors are not seen as valued, and sometimes they're seen as a burden. But I'm here to let people know that seniors are people who can contribute to society by doing a very amount of things. And I was thinking about seniors, and I look at our governments and people who lead us, and most of them are seniors these days. So it goes to show us that seniors can do a lot of things.
Yeah. You could have retired. You had a nice career as a nursing career. What drew you back into caregiving?
Well, when I retired, I enjoyed myself for about 2 months, and then I got bored. So I did some volunteer work with a hospice organization that's right down the street from where I live. Then COVID came, and of course I had to sit in the house again, which made me more anxious to want to do something.
Yeah.
So I did some more volunteer work, and one day I was just on my phone, and I saw an ad for Seniors Helping Seniors. And I was like, that's very interesting. So I read about the company, and I put in an application, not expecting to hear from them because I didn't know the qualifications that we needed. So I did get a phone call. I went in for an interview, and I got sent on my first case, and it was real exciting to me. I had a lot of years in home care, so to meet people in their homes is very rewarding because you get to see them in their own environment, and you can better assess what their needs are. So I enjoy being a caregiver, not in so much as doing nursing stuff, but just to be a support to their needs at home and being a senior.
Well, what made you want to be a nurse to begin with?
Well, when I was younger, my grandfather was dying from colon cancer, and I was upset because I couldn't do anything to help him. So after he passed away, and I thought about it, and after having my first child, I went back to school to be a nursing assistant. And as I got more and more into nursing, I wanted to do more. So I went to LPN school. And then finally, I became a registered nurse. And it's been the most rewarding thing in my life besides living, I think, and enjoying my kids and grandkids. So just being able to help someone who's going through something is very rewarding to me.
Why do you think seniors helping other seniors, it works so well?
I think with the aging process and understanding what that person's going through, because I myself am going through aging things, I think it makes a better rapport, and you're better able to be empathetic with those people. And as you grow older, you learn some patience and some expertise in life. So helping seniors is very rewarding in that you can use your experience and their experience to help them out.
Is that what inspires you to keep going and doing this?
Yeah, and I just like to stay busy. I was really bored during COVID, just being a couch potato and watching TV all day, and that's not what I'm used to. I'm used to being busy and doing things, especially in helping others.
Yeah. What would you say to people, because earlier we talked about how we could do a better job of really taking care of our seniors. What would you say to people about the value of those that are older than us in our communities?
Well, the more contact you have with an elderly person, and if you're open to learning, an elderly person can teach you so much about life.
Yeah.
I remember when I was younger and first started doing home health, the older ladies would teach me stuff about my marriage. They would give me child raising tips. And over in the West End of Atlanta, people had vegetable gardens, and they would always make sure that I had fresh vegetables when I went to visit. So I would say that helping seniors is very rewarding if you're open to learning and to hear about life experiences.
Yeah. How long have you been in the group now?
2 years.
2 years. 2 years. And gotten a lot out of it so far, right?
Yes, I have one little lady that I see 4 days a week, and she has become one of my great mentors because she's 90 years old.
Wow.
She goes out to lunch and dinner almost every day. So it gives me hope that I can continue to do things when I get maybe not 90, but maybe 80.
Wow. And she eats out every day. That's amazing.
Every day. Yeah.
Frances, thank you so much for joining us, and happy Senior Citizens Day to you.
And I want to say I really appreciate you honoring seniors today. That makes me feel really happy.
Hey, we do our best here at 11Alive. We do our best. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
We're going to have another look at your forecast, folks. Plus, we'll have my final take when we return. All right, it's going to be another hot and humid day this afternoon. We're looking at temperatures getting up into the 90s today. You're looking at Hurricane Erin making its way now up to the northeast, which means that it's going to be moving away from the coast. 7-day outlook shows 91 degrees for the high temperature today. It's going to feel more like the mid-90s out there. 86 will be the high temperature tomorrow. We'll have cloud cover and more widespread showers, which will lower that temperature just a little bit. A front will make its way down through the area. I think it will stall over us and keep the threat for those showers in the forecast for Saturday, even into Sunday, before another front moves in and brings that humidity down, which will take that rain threat away, also bring that humidity down, which will make it feel a little bit better on the outside. 89 is where we should be for this time of year. We're going to stay below average on Monday at 87. Look at that, 82 on Tuesday under mostly sunny skies. 81 on Wednesday under partly to mostly sunny skies. That's going to feel nice. We're calling that a false fall. All right, faux fall. Enjoy it, because you know the heat is going to come back eventually. And as we heard from Ty Vaughn earlier, meteorologist Ty Vaughn said the heat could stick around off and on till November. That's the way it works around here. So stop calling me saying, is it over? It's not over. All right, when was the last time you picked up a good book? Well, for most of us, a lot of us, it's been a while. That's according to a new study published in the journal iScience that shows daily reading for pleasure has plummeted 40% over the past 20 years. The report, which surveyed people in the United States, showed that the decline has been sustained over time, about 3% per year. Experts say it has been replaced by social media sites and video games on cell phones. I can believe that. We're always looking down. They stress that reading is important for critical thinking and also empathy development. Experts also believe it's not done. There's still hope. Reading could make a comeback, they say. Romance novels have been the #1 seller for a long time, and they are encouraging old and new authors to write more. Theoretically, it'll bring people back to reading. Well, I've never been a romance novel type guy, more like mysteries and thrillers myself. That's my speed. But whatever works, I think the more we can get people to read and write, the better off our society will be, folks. That's all the time we have for you today. Make it a great one and try to encourage someone to read and write, like physically a book. Open up the pages, smell them.